I've had some great mentors in my life. One of them is Bill Shedd, the chairman of AFTCO Tackle, and he's going to share about regrets.
So you're asking about the story that uh, I told you years ago about having the opportunity living in Newport Beach and getting exposure to a lot of older, wealthier guys. So ever since, like even before high school, I remember asking some of these folks, some of them famous names, some just successful businessmen. So what would you have done different in your life if you could start over? How would you have done anything differently? And just about, well, not just about, every single person to the man said in different ways, but they said, what I'd have done differently is I would have figured out how to spend more time with my family and my kids when they were young. I was younger in my career, and so I was pushing hard for that, and it soaked up all my extra time. And I don't know how I would have done it because it's really challenging and difficult because when you're starting, there's all kind of time pressures and you have to put a lot of time in. But somehow, some way, I would have found a way to spend more time with the kids when they were little. Very consistent theme. And I mean, maybe over the years, a dozen different guys. They all said the same thing. Then one day, I'm sitting on an airplane, not too long ago, flying back east, sitting next to a guy who seemed like a pretty interesting guy, and he was in the movie. It had something to do with making motion pictures. Worked up in Hollywood, and so I got to talking to him and asked him. I said, "So, um, in your life, what would you have done different?" And he talked about business things and decisions that he made. And now I'm kind of waiting for him to come on like everybody else because he had kids and finally I asked him, I said, well, do you have any kids? And he said, yeah, I've got a son lives up in Oregon. I've got a daughter, and he kind of changed the subject. I said, well, let me ask you this. I said, I've asked this question of a lot of people. You answered it different than every other one. Um, they all said they'd spend more time with their kids when they were younger. Would you have done that? He said, well, no, I don't think so. I kind of felt like, kids are going to be what they are. And I don't think you can put too much pressure on them, and you can't, overly influence them. You kind of got to let them be who they want to be and let them do their own thing. And I was doing my thing, and my kids were doing their thing, and my ex-wife was doing her thing. And, I think it all kind of worked out okay. I said, well, do you see your son now? And how old is your son? I think he said he was like, oh, he's 25. Well, do you see much of him? No, we just don't talk. We don't really. He kind of does his thing and I do my thing, and we don't really have much of a relationship. He says, but my daughter, wow, is that ever been great? He said, I had the most wonderful experience with her lately. And I said, oh, gee, what was that? He said, well, I haven't had much contact with her. And then finally she called me up, and she was going to be in a photo shoot, with still pictures. And, she knew I was in the movie business and knew a lot about photography. So she invited me to come down to this photo shoot. And I thought, wow, this was just so wonderful, and it was such a great experience. And uh, even though I did, motion pictures, and I still understood what was going on, and I was just so proud she invited me to the photo shoot. I go, what was the photo shoot for? She said, oh, it was the layout for Penthouse. As a father, I really want to sit there. And my claim to fame with my relationship with my daughter is she invited me to her photo shoot with Penthouse. I mean, I didn't have a whole lot to say after that because I didn't know what to say, other than just wow, that's very different. No, she respected my professional ability, and um, it was just such a nice thing to do. And I thought, well, that's kind of the relationship you have when you don't really put the time in, or even have had the interest even after the fact to put the time in with the kids when they're little. Um, but yeah, no, it was so distinctive that every single guy said the same thing except this one guy. And as it turned out, I could kind of understand why at the end. But
I've looked at certain people in my life that have been great mentors for me, and I've always looked up to you that way. I really appreciate who you are and what you've committed to. I tell that story because I made a commitment way back. It was like 30 years ago when we first met.
don't get it back. You get one opportunity with the kids when they're little, and it's really tough and it's stressful. We had four little kids, and it was all kind of challenges. But I think I'm 68 now, and it's nice to be able to look back and not have the regret of, oh, gee, I wish I'd have spent more time with my kids when they were little, because you only get one shot at it. But I appreciate you thinking of us. That's how you hit on good ideas, is just listen to wise people. So sometimes they come up with good stuff.
Well, I love the story. You told me how you got your apparel all started because you were riding home from a men's retreat, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, going up to Forest Home to a father-daughter retreat, actually with Snyder. And yeah, no, it was a good story. And we're talking about AFTCO in the car.
Yeah, tell the story.
He was saying how, and I was explaining how we have real high market share in little niches of the fishing tackle business. And like we sell 80% of all the better gaffs that are used in the country. And he said, well, how are you going to grow the business with such high market share? We got to make other things. And he said, like what? I started naming a bunch of other things that fishermen would use. And he said, what else? And he kept saying, what else? What else? Finally, I said, well, John, let's talk about something else. We should make anything that the fishermen use, including the clothes on his back. No, what else we want to talk about? That night, I'm laying in bed and I'm thinking, that wasn't an honest statement, because we never thought about making clothing. And, could that ever be a possibility? And I really felt like God was speaking to me and saying, Bill, yeah, you should make clothing. And I never was a clothing guy. And my mom bought all my clothes for me when I was a kid. And my wife, Jill, bought them all as an adult, and didn't really care much or know much about clothing, but really felt like I was hearing from God that this is something that we should do. Laid awake most of the night, prayed about it, and just said, Lord, if you bless this, I'll remember that. And we'll run the business in a way that brings honor to you, and I'll remember where it came from. And by the time I woke up in the morning, we were in the clothing business. I didn't know what we were going to make, but we were going to make clothing. So we came back and made a first pair of shorts, and now it's filling up a 117,000 square foot building here. So it's, and when we were smaller, nobody really cared about the story. But as we've gotten bigger, I've had more opportunities to tell the story. And it's